Are you sure about this? I asked Mark, watching him pack the last of his things into a cardboard box. My husband of 12 years wouldn't meet my eyes as he cleared out his desk in our home office. Linda, we've been over this, he sighed, his tone carrying that condescending edge I'd grown to hate. The divorce papers are signed. I'm moving in with Jessica. It's done. Jessica, his 28-year-old marketing director, the woman he'd been sleeping with for the past year while I poured my heart and soul into building our life together. The betrayal still felt fresh, even 3 months after I'd discovered their affair. My name is Linda Chen, and at 42, I was watching my carefully constructed world crumble. Mark and I had built everything together, or so I thought. Our consulting firm had grown from a small startup to a respectable mid-sized company over the past decade. But now he was walking away with his half, taking most of our clients with him and leaving me to start over. What he didn't know was that I'd been planning something bigger. For months, I'd been developing a revolutionary business idea, a digital platform that would transform how small businesses handle their operations. I kept the plans in my personal laptop, working on them late at night when Mark was working late. Now I knew what, or who, had really been keeping him at the office. As I watched him pack, my laptop sat innocently on the desk, password protected but otherwise unguarded. I never thought, oh, and Linda. Mark paused at the door, finally looking at me. Don't forget our meeting with the lawyers next week. We need to finalize the division of assets. I nodded numbly, not trusting myself to speak. He left, and I sank into my chair, emotionally exhausted. The house felt empty, echoing with memories of happier times. 3 days later, I opened my laptop to find it had been accessed while I was sleeping. The password had been changed, then changed back. But I knew. The encrypted folder containing my business plans was timestamps revealed recent activity. My hands shook as I checked the security logs. Someone had copied my entire project folder, the business plan, the market research, the prototype designs, everything. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Mark and Jessica, champagne glasses raised in celebration. Below it, a message. Thanks for the $1 million idea, Linda. Don't worry, we'll make sure to thank you in our success story. I sat there, staring at my screen, as rage and disbelief warred inside me. They hadn't just stolen my idea, they were mocking me with it. They thought they'd won, that they'd taken everything from me. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They thought the plans they'd stolen were complete. They weren't. What they had was version 1.0, the rough draft, the skeleton. The real innovation, the parts that would make it revolutionary, were still in my head. I'd been refining them, improving them, but hadn't committed them to paper yet. Now I was glad I hadn't. I picked up my phone and dialed my best friend, Sarah. I need your help, I said when she answered. And I need you to put me in touch with that venture capitalist you mentioned. Linda? She sounded concerned. What's going on? Mark stole my business plans. He and Jessica are going to try to launch it themselves. That bastard. Sarah's voice rose with anger. We'll sue them. No, I cut her off. I have a better idea, but I need to move fast. Can you set up that meeting? Of course. But Linda, what are you planning? I looked at the photo Mark and Jessica had sent, their smug faces raising their glasses in triumph. I'm planning to teach them what happens when you underestimate me. The next morning, I walked into the offices of Summit Venture Partners, my refined business plan tucked under my arm. James Chen, no relation. The partner Sarah had connected me with, was waiting. Mrs. Walker, he began. Ms. Chen, I corrected firmly. I've gone back to my maiden name. He nodded, making a note. Ms. Chen, Sarah speaks very highly of you. She says you have something revolutionary to share. I opened my laptop and pulled up my presentation. What I'm about to show you will transform how small businesses operate. But before I begin, I need you to sign this NDA, and I need to know how quickly you can move if you decide to invest. James raised an eyebrow but signed the document. If the idea is good enough, we can move very quickly. Why? Because, I said, pulling up the first slide, we need to beat my ex-husband to market, and I'm going to need significant resources to do it. For the next hour, I laid out my vision. Not the bare-bones version Mark and Jessica had stolen, but the full concept, with all its innovative features and market-disrupting potential. I watched James' expression change from polite interest to genuine excitement. When I finished, he sat back in his chair, steepling his fingers. This is impressive, very impressive. But you're right. We need to move fast. Your ex-husband has a head start. No, I smiled. He has an incomplete blueprint and a false sense of security. What I need is your help to build something better, faster, and more comprehensive than what he thinks he stole. James nodded slowly. How much are you looking for? I named a figure that made his eyebrows rise. That's ambitious. So is what I'm planning to build. But I have something Mark doesn't. A decade of relationships in this industry, a deep understanding of what our clients really need. And I pulled out a stack of letters, preliminary commitments from 15 major potential clients who are ready to sign on as soon as we launch. That got his attention. You've already secured commitments. I've been laying the groundwork for months. These clients trust me. They know my track record. What they don't know yet is that I'm about to offer them something revolutionary. James picked up one of the letters, scanning it. This is impressive. But what about your ex-husband's version? Even an incomplete version of this idea could cause problems. Let him try, I said firmly. He can launch whatever incomplete version he wants. Because what I'm going to build will be so much better that his product will look like a cheap knockoff in comparison. James studied me for a long moment, then reached for his phone. Let me call in a few people. I think we need to move on this immediately. As he dialed, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Mark and Jessica thought they'd cleverly stolen my idea. But they had no idea what was coming. They were about to learn that sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's spectacular, public, undeniable success. And I was just getting started. The next 3 months were a whirlwind of activity. With Summit Venture Partners backing, I assembled a team of top developers, designers, and industry experts. We worked around the clock, building something far beyond what Mark thought he'd stolen. Then came the news I'd been waiting for. Linda, my assistant Kate, rushed into my office one morning, tablet in hand. You need to see this. She pulled up a press release. Walker Digital Solutions announces revolutionary business management platform. There was Mark, standing proudly next to Jessica, announcing their upcoming launch. I smiled, which clearly wasn't the reaction Kate expected. Aren't you worried? She asked. Not at all, I replied, pulling up our own press release, scheduled for the following day. Watch this. The Wall Street Journal's announcement hit at 9 a.m. sharp. Tech industry veterans back revolutionary platform with $50 million Series A. The article detailed how Summit Venture Partners was leading a massive investment round in Chen Innovations, my new company. My phone started ringing immediately. The first call was from Sarah. Oh my God, Linda, she squealed. The timing is perfect. Mark and Jessica's little announcement looks like amateur hour compared to this. But it was the text from Mark that really made my day. What the hell are you doing? This is our idea. I responded with a single word. Our. Then I turned off my phone and focused on our launch preparations. We'd secured the grand ballroom at the Ritz for our event, scheduled 1 week after Mark's planned launch. I wasn't worried about him beating us to market. In fact, I was counting on it. Mark and Jessica's launch event was exactly what I expected. Flashy but superficial. They showed off a basic platform that, while functional, lacked the deep industry understanding and innovative features we'd built into ours. The business press was underwhelmed. Walker Digital's new platform offers standard features in a crowded market, one reviewer wrote. Nothing revolutionary here. Then came our launch. I stood on stage in front of over 500 industry leaders, investors, and potential clients. In the back of the room, I spotted Mark and Jessica, who'd somehow managed to get tickets. Perfect. For too long, I began, small businesses have struggled with fragmented solutions that don't truly understand their needs. Today, that changes. Over the next hour, I demonstrated our platform's capabilities, the proprietary AI algorithms that could predict business needs before they arose, the seamless integration with existing systems, the revolutionary pricing model that made enterprise-level tools accessible to small businesses. Every feature we revealed made Mark and Jessica's version look more and more dated. The room erupted in applause when we finished. Journalists rushed forward with questions. Potential clients lined up to sign contracts. And in the back of the room, Mark and Jessica sat frozen, their faces ashen. Later that evening, as we celebrated with the team, Sarah pulled me aside. "Mark's been trying to reach you," she said. "Apparently, their early clients are already asking to cancel their contracts." I took a sip of champagne. "That's unfortunate." "Linda," she hesitated. "I know they deserve this, but are you worried about looking vindictive?" I set down my glass. "This isn't about revenge, Sarah. This is about building something better than what they tried to steal. If their product can't compete, that's not my problem." But Mark wasn't done yet. The next morning, my lawyer called. "They're threatening to sue," she said. "Mark claims you stole his intellectual property." I laughed. "Let them try. I have dated documentation showing I developed this concept months before they launched. Plus, their product and ours are fundamentally different." "They seem desperate," she warned. "They should be," I replied, "because this is just the beginning." Sure enough, within weeks, reports started circulating about problems with Walker Digital's platform. Bugs, system crashes, poor customer support. Everything you'd expect from a rushed, incomplete product. Meanwhile, Chen Innovations was thriving. Our client list grew exponentially. Industry awards rolled in. The same publications that had dismissed Mark's launch were now hailing us as innovators. Then came the email from Jessica. "Please," she wrote, "we need to talk. Mark's not coping well with all this. The company's failing. Maybe we can work something out." I stared at her message, thinking about all the nights I'd spent developing this idea while they were carrying on their affair. About how they laughed when they thought they'd stolen my future. My response was brief. "There's nothing to discuss. May the best product win." Then I turned back to my work because, unlike them, I had a real company to run. The fall of Walker Digital Solutions was faster than anyone expected. Within 6 months of our launch, they'd lost most of their clients. Their platform's fundamental flaws, rushed development, poor architecture, and missing features had become glaringly obvious. I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when James Chen walked in, looking pleased. "Had he seen the news?" he asked, sliding his tablet across my desk. The headline read, "Walker Digital Solutions files for bankruptcy, CEO steps down." Below was a photo of Mark leaving their offices, boxes in hand. Jessica was nowhere to be seen. "Their investors are furious," James continued. "Apparently, Mark never disclosed that the original concept came from you. When they found out about our prior documentation, they pulled their funding." I finished. "I know. 3 of their board members called me yesterday to offer their congratulations, to discuss acquisition talks." I handed him a folder. "They want to buy out Walker Digital's assets and migrate their remaining clients to our platform." James whistled. "That's poetic justice." "It's business," I corrected, though I couldn't quite hide my smile. "Their clients deserve a better product. We can provide it." Later that evening, as I was leaving the office, I found Mark waiting by my car. He looked terrible, tired, unshaven, his designer suit replaced by wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt. Gone was the arrogant man who'd smugly stolen my ideas. "Linda," he said, his voice hoarse. "Can we talk?" I checked my watch. 5 minutes. "Jessica left," he blurted out. "Said she couldn't handle the failure. The investors are suing me. I need your help." I studied him, remembering how he'd looked in that mocking photo months ago, champagne in hand, celebrating what he thought he'd stolen from me. "No," I said simply. "Linda, please. You've won, okay? You proved your point, but we were married for 12 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant everything," I replied. "Until you and Jessica decided to steal from me instead of believing in me. Until you thought you could take my ideas and do better with them than I could." "I was wrong," he admitted. "We were wrong. But I'm losing everything." "No, Mark. You lost everything the moment you decided to betray me. What's happening now? That's just the consequences of your choices catching up with you." I unlocked my car and got in, but he put his hand on the door. "What do you want?" he asked desperately. "Money? Public apology? Name it." "I want nothing from you," I said firmly. "I've built something successful, something real. Without you, without your interference, without your theft. That's all I ever wanted." I closed the door and drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot. The next morning, I called a company-wide meeting. "As some of you may have heard," I began, "Walker Digital Solutions has filed for bankruptcy. We'll be acquiring their assets and welcoming their remaining clients to our platform. A cheer went up from the team. But that's not why I called you here, I continued. Today, we're announcing our expansion plans. Series B funding is secured. We're opening offices in 3 new cities. And I paused, smiling. We're launching our international division. The room erupted in applause. 1 year ago, I said once it quieted, someone tried to steal my dream. They thought they could take my ideas and do better with them than I could. Today, we've proven them wrong. But more importantly, we've proven that success isn't about stealing someone else's vision. It's about building something real, something valuable, something that makes a difference. Later that evening, as I sat in my office looking out over the city, Sarah stopped by. Quite a day, she said, settling into a chair. How does it feel? I thought about it. You know what's funny? When this all started, part of me wanted revenge. I wanted to prove Mark and Jessica wrong, to make them regret what they'd done. And now, I smiled. Now I realized that the best revenge wasn't destroying their company or watching them fail. It was building something so much better than what they tried to steal that they became irrelevant. It was proving that my success had nothing to do with them and everything to do with believing in myself. Sarah raised her coffee cup in a toast. To believing in yourself. And to karma, I added with a laugh. As we sat there watching the sunset, I thought about how much had changed in a year. Mark and Jessica had thought they were cleverly getting ahead by stealing my ideas. Instead, they pushed me to build something far beyond what they'd imagined possible. Sometimes I realized the people who try to tear you down end up being the ones who push you to your greatest success. Not because they believe in you, but because they underestimate you. And there's no sweeter victory than proving them wrong. The next morning, I received an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Jessica. I'm sorry, it began. For everything. You deserve better than what we did to you. Watching you build something so incredible while we failed. It taught me a hard lesson about karma, integrity, and the difference between stealing success and earning it. I folded the letter and slipped it into my desk drawer. I didn't need her apology anymore. I had something better, the satisfaction of knowing that I turned their betrayal into the motivation to build something extraordinary. And that was worth more than revenge could ever be. The moment I walked into Medicorp's executive boardroom that morning, I knew something was terribly wrong. My brother Michael's smirk, the rushed whispers around the mahogany table, the sight of security guards hovering near the door, it all screamed ambush. Dr. Emily Chen, Michael announced, emphasizing my title with mock formality. So glad you could join us on this historic day. Historic. That word sent chills down my spine. After 15 years of cancer research, after countless sleepless nights in the lab, after finally discovering a breakthrough treatment that could save millions of lives, I was about to learn just how historic this day would become. I straightened my lab coat and took my usual seat, ignoring the pitying glances from board members who'd known me since I was a child running through these halls. Our father had built Medicorp from nothing, turning it into one of the world's leading pharmaceutical companies. He'd left it to both of us when he passed. Michael as CEO, me as Chief Research Officer. Balance, Dad always said. Business needs science and science needs business. Let's begin, Michael said, nodding to Patricia Wong, our Chief Legal Officer. She stood distributing thick folders to everyone except me. The board has convened today, Patricia began, not quite meeting my eyes, to address serious concerns about the conduct of our research division, specifically Project Phoenix. My heart stopped. Project Phoenix was my life's work, a revolutionary cancer treatment using modified stem cells to target and destroy tumor cells while leaving healthy tissue untouched. We just completed the final preclinical trials with unprecedented success rates. What concerns? I kept my voice steady, though my hands were trembling beneath the table. Michael's smile widened. Perhaps you should ask Dr. Jenkins. Robert Jenkins, my deputy director, stood up from the far end of the table. The man I'd mentored for 5 years couldn't even look at me as he spoke. I've uncovered evidence of serious protocol violations in the Phoenix trials, he said, his voice mechanical. Data manipulation, falsified results, ethical breaches. That's impossible, I cut in, my chair scraping back as I stood. I supervised every trial personally. The data is clean. The protocols were perfect. Robert, you know this. I have the documentation right here, he continued, pushing forward another folder. The animal trials showed severe complications that were covered up. The stem cell modifications were performed without proper oversight. Each word was a knife in my back. Every accusation was a twisted lie, but crafted just plausibly enough to sound damning to the board. I looked around the table, seeing doubt and condemnation creeping into faces that had trusted me just yesterday. "This is absurd," I said, fighting to keep my professional composure. "I can disprove every one of these allegations. Let me pull up the original data." "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Michael interjected smoothly. "Given the severity of these violations, we've already secured the lab and all research materials. Corporate security is conducting a full audit." Ice flooded my veins. "You what?" "Furthermore," Patricia continued, "as Chief Legal Officer, I've been forced to report these violations to the FDA and the Ethics Board. Medicorp must protect itself from liability." "Protect itself?" I laughed incredulously. "The only thing happening here is a corporate coup. Michael, what did you promise Jenkins to get him to lie? A promotion? Money? Your own department?" Robert flinched but said nothing. Michael just kept smiling that insufferable smile. Emily, he sighed. "Always so dramatic. This is just business. You're a brilliant scientist, but you never understood how the game is played. Dad's mistake was thinking you ever could." "The game?" My voice rose. "People are dying of cancer every day. This treatment could save them, and you're playing games?" "No, dear sister. I'm building an empire." He stood buttoning his custom-tailored suit jacket. "The board will now vote on the immediate termination of Dr. Emily Chen and the dissolution of Project Phoenix under its current leadership." "You can't do this," I protested. "I have contracts, patents pending. All intellectual property belongs to Medicorp," Patricia cut in. "Your employment contract is quite clear on that point." The vote was a formality. Within 15 minutes, everything I'd worked for was gone. Security escorted me to my lab, watching as I packed personal items into a cardboard box. My keycard was deactivated. My email shut down. 15 years of research, of hope, of potential lives saved, all of it now in my brother's control. But it wasn't until I got home that evening that I understood the full scope of his betrayal. A press release was already circulating. Medicorp announces revolutionary cancer treatment breakthrough. There was Michael, standing in my lab, holding up my research notes, claiming credit for my discovery. The article mentioned a new subsidiary company, Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, with Michael as CEO and Robert Jenkins as Chief Scientific Officer. They hadn't just stolen my job. They'd stolen everything. I sat in my dark apartment, the press release glowing accusingly on my laptop screen, and felt something inside me break, then reform, then harden into steel. Michael thought he knew how the game was played. He thought science was just data and protocols that could be stolen and repackaged. He was wrong. Because while he'd been learning the corporate game, I'd been learning something far more powerful, the truth about how things really worked, about what happened in the spaces between the data points, about the one crucial element in my treatment that I'd never written down, never documented, because some things you only kept in your head. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah Martinez, my best friend since college and now a senior researcher at the FDA's Clinical Trials Division. "Emily, I just heard. Are you okay?" I stared at her message for a long moment, an idea taking shape in my mind. A dangerous idea. A career-ending idea, if I was wrong. But I wasn't wrong. "I need your help," I typed back. "But first, I have to tell you something about Project Phoenix that isn't in any of the research files." My brother had just started a war, but he'd launched his attack thinking he had all the weapons, all the power, all the knowledge. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I opened my personal laptop, the one Michael didn't know about, and began writing. Everything I actually knew about the treatment, every real data point, every true protocol, and most importantly, the one critical secret that would make the difference between miracle cure and catastrophic failure. Michael wanted to play the game. Fine. But he was about to learn that in science, unlike business, there are no clever tricks, no shortcuts, no way to fake the truth. And the truth was about to become his worst nightmare. 6 months passed like a slow-motion nightmare. I watched from the sidelines as Michael paraded my research through every major medical conference and business news channel. Phoenix Pharmaceuticals' stock price soared. Investment poured in. The PR machine painted my brother as a visionary leader who'd spearheaded groundbreaking cancer research. Robert Jenkins became the face of the science, stumbling through technical explanations he barely understood. Each time I saw him on TV, botching the description of my life's work, I wanted to scream. But I waited, calculated, prepared. The phase I clinical trials begin next week, Sarah reported during our weekly secure video calls. She'd taken an enormous risk helping me. But as she said, science matters more than corporations. How many patients? I asked, although I already knew. I'd memorized every detail of their trial protocol. 50 initial subjects, she confirmed. All terminal cases who've exhausted other options. Michael's pushing for fast-track approval. He's already got investors lined up for global distribution. I nodded, making another note in my encrypted files. And the formulation? Exactly what you predicted. They're using the baseline stem cell modification protocol from your original documentation. No sign they've figured out the stability issue. The stability issue. The crucial flaw that had taken me 2 years to solve, and which I'd never included in any official records. The one detail that meant the difference between a revolutionary cancer treatment and a ticking time bomb. My phone buzzed. A message from Lisa Chang, my old lab technician. She'd been transferred to a different department after my firing but still had friends in the research division. They're running final quality checks today and scheduled big press conference for Monday before first treatment, calling it the end of cancer. Hubris, thy name is Michael Chen. I opened my laptop and began composing emails. One to the FDA board of directors, one to the chief medical officers of every major hospital system in the country, one to the top pharmaceutical industry reporters at the Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, and Reuters. Each email contained the same attachment, my complete, true research documentation, including the critical stability protocol that Michael's team had missed, along with proof that I was the original researcher, evidence of the corporate theft, and most importantly, the scientific explanation of exactly what would happen without the proper stabilization procedure. The modified stem cells wouldn't just fail to fight the cancer. They would trigger an aggressive autoimmune response that could kill the test subjects within days. Are you sure about this timing? Sarah asked during our final call. Once you send those emails, the trial starts Monday, I said firmly. Those are real people, real cancer patients. I won't let them be harmed just to prove a point. She nodded. The FDA will have to halt the trial as soon as they see this data. It's going to be a firestorm. Good. I hit send on the last email. Let it burn. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of controlled chaos. My phone started ringing minutes after I sent the emails. Reporters, regulators, hospital administrators, all demanding answers. I directed every call to my new lawyer, a brilliant woman recommended by Sarah who specialized in medical intellectual property cases. By Sunday night, the FDA had issued an emergency hold on the clinical trial. Phoenix Pharmaceuticals stock plunged in after-hours trading, and my brother finally called. What did you do? He snarled, his smooth corporate facade cracking. I protected the science, I replied calmly, and the patients. Something you should have thought about before stealing research you didn't understand. Didn't understand? I built $1 billion company from your little lab experiment. No, Michael, you built a house of cards, and now it's falling. I hung up and turned on the TV just in time to see the breaking news banner. FDA halts miracle cancer drug trial. Allegations of corporate theft and research fraud. Monday morning, instead of triumphantly launching his clinical trial, Michael faced a boardroom far different from the one where he'd orchestrated my downfall. Medicorp's directors had convened an emergency session, and this time, I was the one who'd come prepared. The facts are simple, my lawyer stated, laying out documents before each board member. Dr. Emily Chen is the sole inventor of this cancer treatment technology. Her work was stolen through corporate espionage, and worse, the current research team proceeded with human trials while missing critical safety protocols. These allegations are baseless, Michael interrupted, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. We have documentation. Falsified documentation, Robert Jenkins said quietly from the back of the room. All heads turned to stare at my former deputy. He looked ill. I can't do this anymore. Dr. Chen is telling the truth. Michael paid me to fabricate evidence against her. The research was all hers. The boardroom erupted in chaos. Patricia Wong was frantically flipping through legal documents. Several board members were already calling their brokers. And Michael looked like a man watching his empire crumble in real time. "Let me be clear," I said, standing to address the board. "I have no desire to destroy Medicorp. This company was our father's legacy, but I will not allow my research that could save millions of lives, to be corrupted by corporate greed." "What do you want?" Patricia asked wearily. "Full restoration of my position and laboratory, complete control over Project Phoenix, and Michael's immediate resignation." "You can't do this to me," Michael protested. "I'm CEO." "Not anymore," said Harrison Williams, our eldest board member and Dad's closest friend. "The board votes unanimously to remove Michael Chen for cause, effective immediately." "Emily, welcome back." Security escorted Michael out for the second time in an hour. The first had been at Phoenix Pharmaceuticals when the FDA shut down their offices. As he passed my chair, he hissed, "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," I replied softly. "You played the corporate game, Michael. I stayed true to the science. And in the end, you can't argue with the data." The next few months were a whirlwind of reconstruction. Under my leadership, Project Phoenix was rebuilt the right way. Every protocol verified, every safety measure quadruple checked. When we finally began clinical trials, real ones, this time, the results were everything I'd spent 15 years working toward. Michael tried to launch a competing company, but his reputation was destroyed. No one would invest in the man who'd nearly killed cancer patients for profit. Last I heard, he'd moved to Singapore, trying to rebuild far from the scandal. I kept Dad's photo on my desk in the restored lab, next to my framed copy of the first successful trial results. "Balance," he always said. "Business needs science and science needs business." He was right. But he forgot one crucial element: integrity. Without that, neither business nor science can stand. 1 year to the day after Michael's failed coup, I stood in my lab watching the sunrise through the wall of windows. The same lab where I'd spent 15 years searching for a way to help cancer patients. The same lab my brother had tried to steal for his own glory. My phone buzzed. The first trial results had just been published in the New England Journal of Medicine. "Breakthrough cancer treatment shows unprecedented success rate." Below my name as lead author, a dedication to my father, who taught me that true success comes not from playing the game, but from changing it. The morning light caught my new badge, Dr. Emily Chen, Chief Executive Officer and Chief Research Officer. The board had insisted I take both roles. "Balance," they said, echoing Dad's words. But this time in the right hands. I smiled, thinking of all the patients whose lives would be changed by this treatment. That was the real victory. Not over Michael, not over corporate greed, but for science, for truth, for hope. My brother had tried to play the game and lost everything. I'd stayed true to the science and gained something far more valuable: the chance to make a real difference in the world. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about proving that integrity, patience, and dedication to truth will always triumph over shortcuts and schemes. As I walked through my restored lab that morning, watching my team prepare for another day of potentially life-saving research, I felt nothing but peace. Michael had wanted an empire. I'd wanted to help people. In the end, we both got exactly what we deserved. "Get out. You're not welcome here anymore." My father's words cut through the air like a knife, his face red with anger. I stood in our living room, my hands trembling as I clutched my worn backpack, the only possession they'd let me take. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and on my 18th birthday, my parents threw me out of their house. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I refused to follow their carefully planned path for my life. "You ungrateful child," my mother spat, her perfectly manicured nails gripping the back of a chair. "We gave you everything, planned your entire future, and this is how you repay us." Everything they'd given me came with strings attached. The expensive private school education. It was to prepare me for the prestigious law career they'd chosen. The piano lessons, to make me more appealing to their country club friends' sons. My entire life had been a carefully orchestrated performance, and I was expected to play my part without question. But I had different dreams. Instead of law school, I wanted to pursue my passion for technology and innovation. I've been secretly developing apps since I was 14, teaching myself coding late at night while my parents thought I was studying case law. If you walk out that door, my father warned, his voice cold, don't expect any support from us. No money, no college fund, nothing. I looked at the man who had once carried me on his shoulders, who had taught me to ride a bike, who had promised to always protect me. Now he was throwing me out into the world with nothing but a backpack and the clothes on my back. Fine, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Keep the money. Keep everything. I'll make it on my own. My mother laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that I'd never forget. You? On your own. You can barely do your own laundry. What makes you think you can survive without us? I didn't answer. Instead, I turned and walked toward the door, each step feeling like lead. Behind me, I heard my father's final words. When you fail, and you will fail, don't come crawling back to us. The door slammed behind me with a finality that echoed through my bones. I stood on our perfect suburban street, surrounded by perfect houses with perfect families, feeling anything but perfect. In my backpack, I had exactly $237 saved from my part-time job at the local library, my laptop, 3 changes of clothes, and a dream that my parents had tried to crush. It wasn't much, but it was all I needed to start. That first night, I slept in a 24-hour cafe, buying small cups of coffee every few hours to justify my presence. The barista, Mike, must have sensed something was wrong because he kept refilling my cup without charging me. Rough night? He asked during his break, sliding into the booth across from me. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without breaking down. My laptop was open in front of me, lines of code filling the screen. My escape, my future. What are you working on? He asked, genuinely curious. For the first time that day, I felt a spark of excitement. It's an app, I explained, my voice growing stronger. It helps small businesses manage their inventory and customer relationships. Most existing solutions are too expensive or complicated for small shops. But this, I turned the screen to show him the interface I'd designed. Mike's eyes widened. This could actually help us here. Our inventory system is a nightmare. That conversation was the beginning of everything. Mike introduced me to the cafe owner, Sarah, who not only became my first client but also offered me a job in a small room above the cafe in exchange for helping her modernize her business. I worked during the day serving coffee and learning everything I could about how small businesses operated. At night, I coded, refining my app based on the real-world problems I observed. Sarah's cafe became my testing ground, and every success, every failure taught me something new. Word spread through the local business community. The vintage clothing store 2 doors down wanted my help. Then the bookshop across the street. Soon, I had a small but growing client base. 6 months after being thrown out, I registered my company, SmartBiz Solutions. The registration fee took almost all my savings, but I didn't care. This was my declaration of independence. A year passed. My app evolved based on user feedback. I hired my first employee, a college student named Jamie who was brilliant at customer support. We worked out of the cafe's back room, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the sound of customers. Then came the turning point. A local business magazine did a small feature on how my app was helping transform small businesses in the area. It wasn't much, just a half-page article with a grainy photo, but it caught the attention of a Silicon Valley investor. Marcus Chen walked into the cafe on a Tuesday morning, ordered a cappuccino, and changed my life. He wasn't what I expected a venture capitalist to look like, wearing jeans and a faded t-shirt, but his questions were sharp and precise. Your app solves a real problem, he said after an hour of discussion, but you're thinking too small. This could help millions of small businesses worldwide. He offered to invest $500,000 for a 10% stake in my company. It was more money than I'd ever seen, but I didn't accept immediately. Instead, I negotiated, something my parents would never have believed I could do. 5%, I countered, and I want access to your network of mentors. Marcus smiled, a glimmer of respect in his eyes. 7% mentorship, and I'll help you set up proper offices. We shook hands over coffee cups, and SmartBiz Solutions entered its next phase. Real offices, a growing team, and a product that was finally ready to scale. The next 3 years were a blur of growth, challenges, and learning. Every mistake taught me something. Every success pushed me to aim higher. My team grew from just Jamie to 50 people, then 100. We expanded internationally, translating our app into 12 languages. I never forgot where I came from. The cafe remained our unofficial meeting spot, and I made sure Sarah always had the latest version of our software for free. Mike became our head of customer experience. His understanding of small business needs proved invaluable. By my 23rd birthday, SmartBiz Solutions was valued at $15 million. We had offices in 3 countries and over 500 employees. The small app I'd started coding in my bedroom had evolved into a comprehensive platform used by thousands of businesses worldwide. But success brought unexpected challenges. As our company gained recognition, I knew it was only a matter of time before my parents discovered what I'd built. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face them, but life has a way of forcing confrontations when you least expect them. The call came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office, reviewing plans for our new ad-powered feature, when my assistant buzzed in. "Ms. Mitchell, there's a Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell here to see you. They say they're your parents." I felt my heart stop for a moment. 5 years had passed since that night they threw me out. 5 years of building, growing, and proving them wrong. Now they were here, probably having seen our recent feature in Business Weekly. Should I send them away? My assistant asked, concern evident in her voice. I took a deep breath, straightening my shoulders. "No," I replied. "Send them in." As I waited for the door to open, I glanced at the wall of photos behind my desk. Pictures of my team, our company events, the faces of the family I'd chosen for myself. Whatever my parents wanted, they were about to learn that the daughter they'd abandoned had built something far greater than they could have imagined. The door opened, and I faced my past, ready to show them exactly who I'd become. The door opened slowly, revealing faces that had haunted my dreams for 5 years. My mother entered first, her designer handbag clutched tightly against her chest like armor. My father followed, his once commanding presence somehow diminished in the vastness of my corner office. They looked older, more tired than I remembered. My mother's perfectly maintained appearance couldn't hide the new wrinkles around her eyes. My father's hair had turned completely gray. "Sarah," my mother breathed, her eyes darting around the office, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern furniture, the view of the city skyline. "We saw you on TV last night, the business segment about rising tech entrepreneurs." I remained seated behind my desk, my posture straight, hands folded calmly in front of me. "Yes, CNB's Next Generation Leaders feature. Did you enjoy it?" My father cleared his throat. $89 million, he said, as if testing the words. "Our daughter built an $89 million company." "Your daughter?" I raised an eyebrow. "I stopped being your daughter the night you threw me out with nothing but a backpack." My mother stepped forward, her eyes glistening. "We were wrong, Sarah. We see that now. We were trying to protect you, to ensure you had a secure future. By controlling every aspect of my life." I interrupted, my voice sharp. "By throwing me out when I dared to have dreams of my own." "We want to make things right," my father said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "We're still family." I stood up slowly, walking to the wall of photos behind my desk. "This is my family now," I said, gesturing to the hundreds of smiling faces. "These people believed in me when you didn't. They supported me when you abandoned me." My mother gasped softly as she looked at the photos. "All these people work for you," she whispered. "After a few months when you didn't come back, we tried to find you." "Not hard enough," I said, remembering countless nights wondering if they missed me at all. "I was working at Sarah's cafe the whole time, just 20 minutes from our house. You never came." "We were wrong," my father admitted, his voice breaking. "We were so focused on the life we wanted for you, we couldn't see the amazing life you could build for yourself." I walked to the window, looking out at the city where I built my empire from nothing. "Do you know what I learned after you threw me out?" I learned that family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about choice. It's about standing by someone when they need you most. I turned back to face them. Every person in those photos on my wall. They chose to be part of this journey. They believe in our mission to help small businesses thrive. They work harder than any law degree could have made me work. And they do it because they believe in something bigger than themselves. Jamie stepped forward. "Sarah doesn't just run this company," he said, his voice firm. "She transformed it into a community. When Ben in accounting needed help with his mom's medical bills, she set up a company emergency fund. When Maria in development had her baby, Sarah created our industry-leading parental leave policy. My mother was crying openly now. We didn't know, we never imagined. No, I agreed. You never did imagine I could be more than what you planned for me, but here I am. I walked to my desk and picked up a frame. The only personal photo I kept there. It showed me with Mike and Sarah from the cafe, taken the day we launched our first official version of SmartBiz Solutions. These people, I said, showing them the photo, gave me a chance when I had nothing. They became my family when you decided I wasn't worth keeping in yours. My father reached for the frame with trembling hands. Sarah, please, give us a chance to make things right. We could be a family again. I took the photo back, replacing it carefully on my desk. I have a board meeting in 10 minutes. My team is presenting our expansion plans for Asia. We're projecting to help over 1 million small businesses by next year. Of course, my mother stood up, smoothing her dress nervously. Could we maybe have dinner sometime? Talk properly? I looked at them, really looked at them. The parents who had once seemed so powerful, so absolute in their authority, now appeared small and uncertain in my world. I have dinner with my leadership team every Thursday at Sarah's Cafe, I said finally, the place where my real journey began. If you want to understand who I am now, that's where you'll find me. They nodded, understanding the significance. As they turned to leave, my father paused at the door. We're proud of you, Sarah, he said softly, even though we have no right to be. After they left, Jamie stayed, watching me carefully. You okay? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. You know what? I really am. They came here expecting to find their little girl, someone they could still control. Instead, they found me. Jamie grinned. They found a badass CEO who built an empire from nothing. No, I corrected him, gesturing to our wall of photos. We built an empire. All of us. That evening, I walked into Sarah's Cafe for our regular Thursday dinner. The familiar smell of coffee and freshly baked cookies wrapped around me like a warm hug. My leadership team, my chosen family, was already there, laptops open, arguing good-naturedly about market strategies. Mike was behind the counter, still making the best cappuccino in the city. Sarah was teaching our newest intern how to properly clean the espresso machine, just like she'd once taught me. As I took my usual seat, I noticed 2 figures standing uncertainly outside the cafe's window. My parents, dressed more casually than I'd ever seen them, clearly debating whether to come in. I caught Sarah's eye, and she nodded in understanding. She went to the door and opened it wide. Welcome to Sarah's Cafe, she said warmly. Your daughter has told us so much about you. As my parents stepped into the cafe where their abandoned daughter had begun her journey to success, I realized something profound. Sometimes the family you choose becomes more real than the family you're born into. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. My empire wasn't built on the foundation of the prestigious law career they planned for me. It was built on coffee-fueled coding sessions, on faith when no one else believed, on the collective dreams of 1,200 people who chose to be part of something bigger than themselves. That's what my parents saw on TV, and that's what finally brought them back. Not the $89 million valuation, but the undeniable evidence that their daughter had built something remarkable. Not despite their abandonment, but because of it. As they hesitantly approached our table, I stood up to make introductions. Everyone, these are my parents. They're here to learn about our family. And in that moment, surrounded by the people who had become my true family, I knew that I had built something far more valuable than just a successful company. I had built a home where everyone belonged exactly as they were. The empire I built wasn't just about business success. It was about creating the accepting, supportive family I had always dreamed of having. And that was worth more than any inheritance my parents could have given me. Sometimes being abandoned is just the universe's way of pushing you toward your real destiny. In my case, it pushed me straight into an $89 million success story, with a family 1,200 strong and growing. And that's a success no one can take away from me.